Generals, gentlemen.
Hello, welcome to my video on Act of Aggression. It's going to be basically my thoughts and my impressions on the game, so not exactly like a cast or anything. So I have someone joining me. His name is Firestarter.
Hello.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm like a marshal for Eugen and stuff. I played a lot of...
What marshal means is beta tester.
Yeah, pretty much beta tester, and we kind of have a direct link to the developers, so we usually rant to them, and they end up not really listening to us. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, but yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, so basically I wanted to do this with Firestarter because, well, a few reasons. Firstly, because he's going to have a very different perspective to what I have. So basically, he's been involved with the Wargame franchise for quite a long time. He's actually has a YouTube channel where he does content for Wargame. So he has a bit of a different perspective than what I have from a more Command and Conquer and Company of Heroes 2 background. So we're going to be giving our opinions on what we think of the game, and they're probably going to be quite different to each other, and that's okay. We're allowed to disagree about things on the internet. It's fine, don't worry.
Yeah, it's a bit typical for the internet, but it's fun.
Yeah. So I think really that the first thing to mention, like at least what I sort of had going into Act of Aggression, is it was being hyped as sort of the spiritual successor to Generals 2. So it's Generals 1. Now that Generals 2 has flopped and no longer going to be released. But like it's nothing like CNC. Like comparing it to CNC it's kind of hard to do. There's similarities, but the gameplay is so different. So I think for a lot of people, it's going to be disappointing, and it was for me, just in the fact that it isn't really like Command and Conquer, at least not as much as you would think. But I think that's sort of a thing that we only have ourselves to blame. Like Eugen never tried to hype it as a CNC game. It was always us, the community, being like, yeah, spiritual successor, yeah. So yeah, that's one thing to bear in mind. What did you think your first impressions with playing it? What do you think it'd be like?
Well, I mean, I wasn't really hoping it to be like, oh, Generals 2, you know, we finally got that game, but it's kind of cool in its own right, and people really shouldn't expect it to be a clone because Eugen kind of want to put their own spin. I mean, the fact that the resource system itself is just so expansive is kind of a testament to that. But yeah, and also the unit lethality is much higher than what CNC is used to, so it's a lot more hectic in that regard, and you really have to be careful with what you're doing.
Yeah, that's really one big thing here with Act of Aggression is the economy is really full on. Like there's 3 different types of resources. You've got oil, you've got aluminium, you've got your power plants, you've got your rare earth. So there's actually a lot of economic management, and not just that. There's also like you got to manage your logistics. You got to like transport resources between different like expansions and refineries. So there's actually a lot of depth in the economy, but I think that's actually to the detriment of the game. I think the economy is just convoluted, and I think that's a pretty unanimous thing. And this is basically from any rule perspective, from a CNC perspective, from a Wargame perspective.
Everybody agrees with that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, it's like no matter what sort of game you come from, the economy is just a clusterfuck. Like it's confusing, it's really complicated, it's really janky, it's really awkward. I guess one thing we probably should have mentioned earlier into the video is that this is, of course, VIP beta, so it still is pretty far away from release. So toesn't mean to say that it's going to be anything like this by the time the game actually comes out. So yeah, keep an eye out for it going towards open beta, towards its release. It could definitely quite be different to what it is now. So it's pretty cool that we're actually able to do these sort of videos despite the beta. Most sort of companies would have this under a non-disclosure agreement. But for Eugen, they were like, yeah, that's cool. You can post whatever you want. Just say it's in beta. Okay, cool.
Well, they've been very lenient.
Yeah, I really do appreciate that. I think it's healthy as well, because then you do have a lot more like honest feedback, because this is more transparency, and it's just easier to sort of grow like that. So yeah, the other sort of gripe I have with it is there isn't really much micromanagement in terms of like actually controlling units. Like The lethality is so high, and by lethality, I mean units die quickly. So for example, a tank will kill an infantry guy in 2 shots, rather than, say, normally where it'll take 4 or 5 shots if you compare it to the average sort of lethality pace of an RTS game.
Yeah, and the hard counters are super, super important. And it's really all about the combined arms and positioning. So it plays really like Ruse and Wargame. I don't know if you've ever heard of Ruse. It was
I haven't.
World War II
I'm
game
sure some of my
by
viewers
Eugen.
have.
Yeah, so it definitely compares to some of Eugen's older titles. But yeah.
Yeah, this is basically the sequel to Act of War back in 2005. I never actually played it though. I heard it was similar to Generals, but you got to be careful with things that you hear because most people don't know what they're talking about, to be honest.
That's very, very true.
Yeah. Anyway, so as you can notice, we've been in game for about 5 minutes now, and we're basically just building refineries. And one of the other problems with it is the pace, at least at the start, is very, very slow. You don't really do much. There isn't really much potential for harassing. The maps are so big. You can kind of harass with really cheesy stuff, but there isn't like a sort of a natural, organic way of harassing in a fun sort of way. At least, you know, if you compare it to, say, Generals, where you have really early action, Company of Heroes, where you're fighting over territory as soon as the game starts. Here, there definitely seems to be some pacing issues.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it all comes down to how convoluted the economy system is, because most of your early game is just spent trying to get your units going, you know, set up your refineries and stuff, which distracts from you actually building units and trying to be aggressive.
Yeah.
Once you get battles going, they're, I don't know, at least in my opinion, they're very hectic and they're very fun because it's all about countering what your opponent is bringing, and then, you know, you have things like civs, which can intercept enemy missiles, and that's like super crucial to have with your main army and things like that. So there's a lot of potential in the combat system, I think.
Yeah,
really
I think I
enjoy
agree
that
there's a lot of
aspect.
potential, but I disagree that I think in the current form, the combat is really not fun at all for me personally, because again, there isn't really much micro. I mean, you want to sort of have the right hard counters, I guess, and you want to sort of have a good sort of formation and good positioning, but in terms of like in combat action, there's no real kiting, there's no real, you know, using abilities, there's no sort of using certain quirks and like techniques to sort of maximize damage. It's kind of just attack move, honestly, and for me, I don't enjoy that at all.
Enemy unit detected.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would to some extent. I mean, Generals doesn't really have that many abilities aside from the special heroes and stuff,
Yeah,
right?
so the thing is with Generals, is it
A
isn't
bit
so much
similar.
abilities, it's more just about the techniques of how you use your units. Like everything has certain quirks to it. So for example, you know, your Humvees, you got to kite with them, you got to evacuate the units before you die. With Gatlings, you got to spin them up to maximize their damage. You definitely can juke behind garrisons to like avoid being shot
Yeah,
at
firing
by...
through buildings. I assume that's a bug because there's no way they were trying to intentionally put that in.
Yeah, so when I say there's a lot of generals in, a lot of micro and generals, it's not necessarily because of abilities. That's kind of how, like the way Red Alert 3 works. Red Alert 3 has a lot of micro because of all the quirky abilities. In general, it's just kind of more just using the units themselves, because there's so many different unit types that have different speeds, different sort of weapon like effects and projectiles. So yeah, I now finally have an army of tanks. You can see how quickly they die to the javelin troops inside of that bank. That's actually one little interesting mechanic that I think is pretty poorly executed in its current form, but it's a cool idea, is that there are certain civilian structures that you can garrison with infantry that will actually give you income over time.
Yeah, like the banks, the yellow squares on the map.
Yeah,
we
one
should
that
also
is in.
mention the prisoners of war, I think. That's a pretty neat mechanic.
Yeah, you
that
can
sometimes backfire
describe it if you want.
you're not careful with what you're doing.
Yeah, do you want to explain it?
Yeah, so basically, sometimes, I don't know the chances for how it really works, but when your units die, what happens is your troops become wounded, and they can be captured by regular rifle infantry or snipers, at least for the US faction. I'm not sure how the other factions will manage to
Yeah,
do
that's
that.
one thing to bear in mind. Is currently in this version we only have
Yeah.
US. We don't have the other two factions. So I guess what we're judging of the game, we're judging from one faction.
Yeah, so we don't know the dynamics and how it's gonna play out with multiple factions and how they're gonna counter each other. But to go back to what I was saying, so basically, if you do not have a field hospital for the US faction, when you capture prisoners of war, they only give you monetary rewards. But if you have a field hospital, once you capture the prisoners, they kind of act like hackers would in 0 hour, which means you get money over time. And another thing, mid and late game, you can actually trade them for various types of resources. So you can get like aluminium maybe or rare earth, and that's kind of interesting, I think.
Yeah, so now I'm trying to harass these refineries.
Yeah,
It's
and
taken
I'm
me about
harassing your
a full
supply
minute
lines as well.
to drive across the map, which is ridiculous. Like this map is currently way too big, and it slows the game. He's trying to attack me with some air units, I think.
Yeah, I just dropped infantry on your.
Oh, he's in that
flanks and
garrison. So
harassing your-
basically,
yeah.
to clear the garrison, I need to get a sniper team.
Or mortars.
Uh,
Mortars and artillery work wonders against garrisons, I found out.
Okay. I'll probably just get a sniper though, because it's a little easier.
Yeah.
So I've killed his refinery. It's going to be hurting his economy a little bit. I'll try and snipe this one as well. So you generally don't really harass trucks because, yeah, I'm losing stuff as well here. I don't know what I'm losing exactly, but I'm losing things that are important, and I want to obviously prevent that
Not
from
lose
happening.
units, yeah.
There's my LEMs in my trucks, yeah. So he's doing a bit of damage here as well. He did a infantry drop, I think, from a helicopter. Was that right?
Yep, that's correct. Oh, and you took out my refinery because I was not paying attention.
Yeah.
I do not appreciate that machine. I really don't.
Well, I don't appreciate killing my LEMs. Yeah, so it's kind of hard to talk about a game that is only in beta, and it's hard to sort of be critical because a lot of things are going to be changed. There's obviously a lot of small issues that we haven't even bothered mentioning because they're obviously going to be changing. But I think for me, they need to definitely simplify the economy so it's
Same.
a bit less just frustrating and confusing and tedious. And I think they need to like add in a bit more micro, just to sort of make it a bit more hands-on in terms of what you actually do. And decreasing lethality would definitely be a start.
Yeah, a bit. And nerfing Apaches because they're just insane.
Yeah, but that's like balance. That's a sort of a
Yeah,
different
that's
issue.
minor. That's just number
Yeah.
changes.
For me, yeah,
Main-
the economy is a bit concerning because that is a big difference here. So notice, like, there's no micro. Like, I'm not even doing anything. I'm just clicking on his tanks and tanks fire. Like, I'm not really kiting. I'm not, like, there's just nothing to it. And that's just not very fun. Coming from Company of Heroes, coming from Command & Conquer, having that level of micro is, it's satisfying to have.
We will take firing position there.
Yeah, what we were saying earlier with the pilots is whenever like a vehicle dies, it drops off a little pilot, and he can capture that with rifle infantry, and then he gets money out of it, and that's kind of stupid because it means that I've killed a lot of refineries, but every pilot he captures, he's going to get like money from that, which will basically negate how effective the harassment was because he gets free cash from my units dying. So there's I think one thing to like active aggression is you can sum it up by saying like there's so many ideas that are kind of cool, I guess, but they're executed so poorly that there's just so many half fleshed out ideas that don't really make sense and just make it really confusing and weird.
Yeah, definitely. They need to sort out a lot of stuff before it can actually
Yeah.
be a bit more fast-paced, I think.
Yeah, they need to like be a bit more critical of which mechanics are actually fun and add to gameplay, and which mechanics are just there for the sake of it. Yeah, with the harassment, because the maps are so big, you're often harassing each other, and your armies are in entirely different places, so you don't really sort of fight each other. You just kind of harass refineries and then lose your units. And then, like, eventually you'll have some big battle with, like, 20 tanks, and whoever has the most tanks win. It's, yeah, there isn't, like, pacing, there isn't flow. And I think one of the reasons why is because of the way the expansion works. Because...
Yeah, there's no viable way of expanding.
Yeah, and not only that, you don't need to expand, because you have so much resources in your base already that, like, you just don't need to expand for a very, very long time. And as a result, since there's no expansions, there's no need for map control. You don't need it to take the map because everything you need is in your base. And then because of that, you know, you don't have that interesting, you know, gameplay elements of denying map control, fighting for vision. Yeah, so it's, I don't know, I think active aggression needs a lot of work, but it's too early to sort of write off, just because, you know, it is an early beta.
Yeah, definitely.
And there definitely will be a lot of improvements to see. But I think ultimately, at the end of the day, like, I am not the target audience. Command & Conquer players, Command of Heroes 2 players are not the target audience. And if we don't like the game, doesn't mean the game is bad, it just means that we want something more hands-on, with more micro. I think he's trying to capture my refineries. Yeah,
Yeah, I just
that's ridiculous.
I just dropped infantry and captured your refineries. So that's the way kind of you can harass in this game. And sell them for money, which is pretty funny actually.
The capture mechanic works the same way in 0 Hour, where you
exactly.
rifle and capture it, except it's very, very short.
Yeah, they need to tweak that. But I would like to just go back to what you were saying about the combat system and the micro. Personally, I like that it's more about combined arms attacks and having the right position more than it is about frantically clicking, but then again...
Well, I mean, for me it isn't. I just have tanks, and my tanks killing your infantry, my tanks kill your tanks, my tanks do everything. The only thing that I need to mix in is my anti-air. I have my tanks and my anti-air and I'm good. That's all I need. There's no hard countering. I'm sure there will be later on, once they fix the counter system, but... Currently, I just have tanks that do everything, and anti-air, and that's it. Anyway, go on, sorry.
Yeah, so yeah, as I was saying, I mean, I come from a wargame background, which is basically you go here, set up here, and do this and that, you know? And I kind of like that there's not much in terms of microing your units, as I was saying, but the thing that distracts
Because wargame
this
is more
game most of
strategic.
me-
There's
yeah,
actually a lot of
wargame is
tactics
more
involved.
about...
Yeah, where in generals, like, there's no strategy. Generals
Yeah, exactly.
is just brainless, right? It's just micro. So
Yeah,
yeah,
pretty
different
much.
sort of preferences.
Oh god, I lost a full kilo. That was not good. Yeah, but as I was saying, the thing that distracts me most is just how not well implemented the economy system is, and that just it's a hassle really. It's tedious to do, and it's just not fun.
You have a sniper in the garrison,
Yeah, I do.
so I need a mortar to clear it out.
Yes, you do.
Let's see. No, he's gonna capture my refinery again, I think.
Yeah, this is kind of my favorite playstyle, which I discovered yesterday, is just to start dropping infantry all over the place, harass your base and bugger out, get more infantry and put it everywhere. But I'm stupid and I didn't put any riflemen, I only put javelins, so I'll have to destroy it, I guess. Oh wow.
Yeah, I can see that. Well, I'm glad you didn't.
I'm sure you are.
Yeah, so this is like anti-tank infantry, and my tanks are just gunning them down. So
Yeah, it's not really well balanced. See,
Yeah.
they die really fast.
But that's kind of the thing that's not really worth criticizing, because it's really obvious, and they're
Yeah, that
obviously
will
going
be
to fix it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really want to nitpick on little things. I just sort of want to say that overall, I don't like the gameplay elements, like the intentional decisions of like having a really complicated economy system with no incentive, but also no viable means to realistically expand, as well as no reason for map control. So I think that they need to like drastically decrease the amount of supplies that are actually in your base, but then make expanding like really cheap and like really easy to do. So you just have all these expansions, all these refineries, so then you are actually constantly driving around the map trying to snipe refineries. That'd be really fun. If there was a lot of action surrounding you know, the refineries, whether or not it's micro intensive or whether or not it's just to do with hard counters, like whatever. But the point is like, so long as there's objectives, you gotta sort of have something to do. You gotta keep the game flowing. And by having refineries that are cheap and fast to build, but are also pretty easy to harass, then you're always going to be driving around the map trying to harass your opponent's refineries, trying to hold the banks, and that's what makes the game fun, is when you're always trying to do something.
No, I completely agree with your sentiment there.
Like,
there's just too much emphasis on the economy.
how does it work in Wargame? Like, what do you fight over, essentially?
Well, there's two modes in Wargame. One is destruction, which none of the competitive players play because it's the most boring camp fest ever. Essentially,
like
you
Annihilation
fight
in
over,
Company of Heroes, yep.
Sort of, but you fight over zones which give you money, and since there's like really no incentive to attack in such a game mode, it's kind of stupid because it counts your victory as the amount of kills you have. But the competitive game mode in Wargame is Conquest, which basically means you win by holding zones, and the money you get are constant, so both teams have the exact same flow of cash constantly, which works really well.
Yeah, so it's like a victory point system where you have to hold. Yeah, and the reason why that's fun is because then you are fighting over certain pieces of territory. There's something to actively do, whereas currently active aggression, there isn't really that. There isn't really refineries to harass. You're just sort of attacking your other person's base, which is very, very far away.
Oh, it is super far away. But I think that has to do with the map we're playing on. I hope the other maps are not actually as expansive as this one.
Yeah, the map's way too big, but also just the supply placement, like the oils, is just kind of wonky. Yeah, so the reason why I'm winning this battle is because I have the Tusk upgrade for my strikers, and he doesn't. It gives him extra health.
Yeah,
so
you pretty much decimated me there.
Yeah, upgrades are very important, but again, I didn't do anything. Like, I wasn't even watching. I just told my tanks to move over your base. I looked away, the tank shot, like I didn't do anything. There's no micro. And that's, for me, that isn't fun.
Yeah, but as we said, it all comes down to the target audience, because I personally enjoy the combat system.
Yeah.
But, you know, maybe some people wouldn't, because, as you said,
and that's what I'm saying. I think my
micro-intensive.
audience, my Command and Conquer and Company of Heroes viewers are going to find this, at least in its current state, pretty dissatisfying, because, yeah, it's not very hands-on. Like, there isn't a lot of micro. Is that a part? Oh, wow. Gee, those are Javelin troops. With that upgrade. Upgrades are very important in this game. These Javelin troops have heaps of range.
Yeah, they do. I don't think you'll appreciate what I'm about to do, but it should be fun.
I don't know. He's capturing my command center. Alright, I'm gonna sell. I don't know how to sell though. I actually have no idea how to sell. Yeah, I lost it. I didn't know how to sell. So we played different playstyles. I've gone for more sort of tanks to try and kill his base, which I kind of did, and he went for like infantry drops, and I think that's something that has a lot of potential. Like dropping infantry, like that's actually kind of fun. And
yeah, I mean,
something
there's
that I like
a lot
about
of different
conflict.
playstyles in this game. That's what I said. Like before yesterday, I was like, wow, this is just a one-trick pony game. You do the same thing over and over again. But as I told you, me and a friend tried to experiment a bit with how to play the game, and yeah, you went for a vehicle bay opener, whereas I went for a field hospital opener, which allows me to transport my infantry in helicopters. And I'm focusing more on an infantry approach.
My sniper gets taken out by your javelin troops that outrange my sniper and kill it in 3 shots. Like, yeah. That's but obviously that sort of thing's gonna get fixed. But
yeah, those are gonna get fixed. But for me, the current most important issue is just the economy.
Yeah, and that's
exactly. It just distracts. Yeah. And if they sort that out, I think there's a lot of potential in this game. I mean, at least for me, I find it fun.
Yeah. The more emphasis on economy you have, the less emphasis you will have on unit control. And I think unit control is fun. Like,
it is.
Regardless of whether it's micro or whether it's just sort of preparing them in a helicopter. Like right now, like there isn't necessarily micro in what he's doing, but it's fun because he's dropping helicopters around, he's harassing me, he's making plays. Like that's cool.
Yeah, that's what you want to have.
Yeah, that's what you want to have more of.
And I'm also building in your base.
Yeah, I'm lost. I've basically GG'd. I don't have any money left. Yeah. So well played. Well played.
Thank you, machine. Likewise, I did not really expect you to bone me that hard with those. Those LAVs.
There's MG nest in my base. God damn it.
And a barracks.
Yeah, because he got my HQ. He can build from my HQ. All right, GG.
Yeah, GG. That was fun.
So I think, like, honestly, like, the game has issues, but it's in beta, so of course it will have issues, but keep an eye out for it in open beta and release. It definitely could. It has potential, it has promise, but we'll see. That's my honest opinion, is try not to discount it, keep an eye out for it, and it probably won't be your thing if you're into CNC, but I don't know. I'll buy it at least when it comes out, see if I like it. I'll do more videos of it later on. Any last words?
Well, I mean, I think we pretty much covered everything we wanted to say. We've been ranting about this for 3 days.
That was a 24-minute game, right? And
yeah,
there was, I think, in that 24 minutes, we had 2 engagements. There was 2 fights, and then there was just a bunch of building refineries and like, they need to work on like not just the economy, but I think the main thing is flow. And those 2 things are closely linked, but not necessarily reliant upon each other. But I think they should be reliant upon each other. You want to have a lot of objectives, and that's something that Company of Heroes does brilliantly with its territory system. You know, field munitions, your strategic points. Generals doesn't do very well, admittedly, I don't think, to be honest, because in Generals you don't really expand that much. But with Generals, it's still a very aggressive game, just because of how easy it is to harass your opponent's base.
True. I mean,
you don't necessarily.
Harassment sort of works in this game. I think I kind of proved that this.
Match. Yeah. We were harassing each other, but we were harassing each other's bases. We weren't harassing each other's like forward supplies or anything like that.
True. Well, I did capture your bank. I don't know if you know there's that. I mean, so there's some incentive in trying to maintain map control. But as you said, it's not viable to expand, and we didn't really mention that when you plop down a forward HQ, because you're actually limited in only building in your base, so you're kind of confined. And when you want to expand, it splits your resources into networks, which means your forward HQ doesn't share the same resources globally. And that's just a huge drawback, in my opinion.
Oh, for sure. It's just way too complicated.
They need to sort that out.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't think I have anything else to say. I'll go rant on the Marshall forums. I'll pester the developers as much as I can, and see what happens.
Like, for the record, I actually do enjoy like complicated economies and economic management. And that's why like I really enjoy like Rise of Nations. I love the shit out of that game. But same. It's a different style of game. Like when you have a competitive multiplayer like action RTS, you don't want to bundle in a complicated economy system. Like at least not in my opinion, because you want to have the emphasis on unit control and being active. But then like.
No, I agree completely there.
Yeah, but whereas with Rise of Nations, it's like it's not a aggressive, competitive multiplayer game. It's a very sort of strategic single-player focused game, and that's fine and that's fun. But it's a different sort of style of game, and I think Active Aggression is trying to be like multiple different things. It doesn't really know where it wants to go. Like it has sort of. It's trying to do too many things simultaneously, and it needs to sort of like
slow
itself.
Down and
reflect a bit. Simplify things a little bit, and then see what works. But I mean, my biggest concern is that I heard they want to release this game in June, and I think that's going to be way too early.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. But we'll see what happens. I mean, I have faith because I love the shit out of the Wargame franchise. They did an exceptional job. Granted, they were kind of slow with their patching policies, and I hope that they learn from their mistakes. But they know how to make like a fun, engaging experience. They've been making some really, really good RDS games for a long time now. So yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and if you do want to check out some Wargame Red Dragon videos, you can. Tell us your channel, Firestarter.
Oh, well, thank you for the plug, but it's basically I'll leave a comment on the video, and people can tell me how much I suck. I guess that works.
Yeah, so you do shoutcasts and gameplay videos.
Yeah, mostly competitive gameplays of Wargame and things like that.
And I may join him at some stage if it goes on sale.
Oh, I would love that. I mean, you said that you're not really the economy type of player guy. You're gonna love Wargame because there's no economy whatsoever. Yeah, you just fight and that's it. It's just a 40-minute constant action game.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me.
Oh, that's alright. It's been fun. Thanks for your opinion. It's good to have like different opinions and perspectives.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I think you get value in that. But anyway, that'll wrap it up. Thanks for watching, and let's hope Active Aggression turns out good.
Well, let's hope so.